At the Best Actress Award ceremony, my model husband shows his affection for me. I respond with a radiant smile, but as I turn my head, my smile instantly freezes. In the audience, my former benefactor is watching me coldly. When I first entered the industry, I starred in several low-budget web dramas. None of them gained much traction. My manager, Kay, sat me down for a serious conversation. She said the company's resources were limited, and to get ahead, I needed someone behind me. I needed a high-profile benefactor. I lowered my head in silence, thinking of the millions in bank debt. Stealing my heart, I said, "Okay, Kay, you arrange it." That night, she took me to a high-end dinner. A table of influential industry figures sat there, each about the age of my father. I remembered what Kay told me: let down my guard, be charming, and they would like me. Only if they like me would they be willing to pour money into my career. I wore a low-cut red dress with a high slit, raising my glass to toast them one by one. The powerful men were satisfied, their words hinting at a certain arrangement. I wasn't surprised by this result. Both Kay and the company boss had said I was exceptionally beautiful. Soft and alluring, any man would find me irresistible. During the drinks, Kay gave me a look. She wanted me to wait a bit longer, to see all the options. That wait brought Julian. When he walked into the private room, the arrogant men all stood up with smiles on their faces. I was drunk, leaning on someone's shoulder with a flushed face. "What brings you here, Mr. Sterling?" Julian casually replied, "Oh, I heard there's a rare beauty here. I came to see for myself." The person sitting next to me sensibly got up. He sat right beside me, silent, coldly lighting a cigarette. I shakily held up a glass and smiled provocatively. "A toast to you, Mr. Sterling." He looked down, took the glass, and poured the wine right over my head. The table went dead silent. I was aggrieved and lost, my carefully styled hair ruined. But he wasn't done. Julian slowly picked up a napkin, dipped it in wine, and wiped off the makeup I had spent an hour on. He pinched my chin, turning it towards the other men with a cold smile. "Look at this, you call this a rare beauty." Julian stayed for a while and then left. Kay helped me into the restroom, where I threw up and finally sobered up. He had come here just to humiliate me in public. Kay tried to comfort me with a forced smile. "Don't listen to him, you're stunning even without makeup." She wiped my face. Men of his level can be temperamental. I slumped in the corner, unable to even force a smile. In my dizziness, I saw a vision of Julian kneeling at my front door during a heavy rain. The tall teenager looked small while kneeling, his face pale with suppressed emotion. He knocked on the door repeatedly, his voice raspy. "Please, Mr. Thorne, let my father go. He's not well, he can't go to prison. I can beg for him, just give him a chance to live." He knelt in the mud, his knees sinking into the dirt. No one answered. After a long time, the gate creaked open. I walked out expressionlessly and threw a stack of cash in his face. He froze, the softened expression on his face slowly turning cold. "Take the money and get out," I said coldly. "Your father's condition can't wait." Without looking at him, I turned and walked away. If I stayed a second longer, I was afraid I would cry in front of him. After that day, Julian disappeared. I rubbed my temples with a bitter smile. I didn't expect the family business to be resurrected in his hands. It was even more successful than before. Even if my father's company hadn't collapsed, we wouldn't be on his level. Kay helped me out of the hotel. A car suddenly pulled up at the entrance. The window slowly rolled down, Julian's profile indistinct in the dim blue lights. "Get in," he said flatly. The limousine was well insulated from sound. He didn't speak, and I didn't dare to break the silence. The car finally stopped in front of a villa. I froze. This was my old home. Julian looked down at me and scoffed, "What, afraid to go in? From now on, you'll live here." I shuddered. What did he mean? "Weren't you looking for a benefactor? How about me?" His gaze swept across my chest, darkening. "Elara, since you're selling yourself anyway, sell to me. I'll pay a higher price for old time's sake." My hands and feet went cold. I retreated, trembling. "No, I don't want to." "Anyone but him." "Think carefully," he said lightly. Those 3 words made me stop in my tracks. That night, all my belongings were moved in. Actually, it wasn't much, just some clothes. The expensive bags and jewelry had long been sold to pay off debts. Julian sat on the sofa with his long legs stretched out. After the movers left, he turned to me and raised his chin slightly. The meaning was clear. I took a deep breath and sat down beside him. With my movements, my red dress slipped down an inch. Julian stared at me, his pupils dark and deep. I took the chance to press my face against his chest, my hands softly wrapping around him. The breathing above me became heavy. He grabbed my hair and kissed me fiercely. Amidst the tangled embrace, he suddenly stopped and asked hoarsely, "Why are you crying?" Was I crying? I was dazed for a moment, then whispered, "I'm scared." Scared? What right do you have to be scared? He pinned my wrist, his long fingers resting on my collarbone. "This is all you owe me." The next day, Julian woke up early. I was half asleep under the covers, clutching my pillow. I saw him checking his watch while on a call and told him to go out if he wanted to talk. He froze for a second, then actually went out. He came back 10 minutes later, sat on the edge of my bed, and pinched my face. I slapped his hand away, turned over, and gave him the cold shoulder. He seemed to smile, still as cranky as ever in the morning. Later, when I woke up and thought back on it, I was breaking out in a cold sweat. What star would dare treat their benefactor like that? I regretted sleeping so soundly. I've always been a heavy sleeper, even since school. Julian used to live next door and would come over early every day to wait for me to go to school together. Under the pressure of his presence, I had to drag myself out of bed. One winter, he hurried over in the dark and took a nasty spill, cutting both his knees. When I was getting ready to leave, the housekeeper was tending to his wounds. He saw me and joked, "Up so early today, touched by my sincerity." My father sighed nearby. "Boy, if you hurt yourself seriously, how will I explain to your father?" Our families were very close back then. I sighed into my pillow. Being Julian's mistress wasn't actually that bad. After all, he's wealthy and handsome. Back in high school, I often drooled over his face. I even joked once, "If you ever end up poor, let me know, and I'll take care of you." He narrowed his eyes and laughed. "Okay, don't you dare go back on your word." A few days ago, when Julian visited my company, everyone from the chairman to the junior stars was lined up to welcome him. Only I stood in the back, makeup-free, yawning lazily. I had tried to wear full makeup and look perfect in front of him before. But it always ended with a cold, "Go wash your face." I came out of the bathroom looking miserable. He leaned back on the sofa. "I've seen your natural face more than enough times." Then his expression would turn cold again, and he'd sleep in another room. I realized he hated talking about the past. Julian had a meeting with the higher-ups that lasted only 15 minutes. When it ended, the chairman and manager walked out looking pale. The company had been acquired by Julian. That was his first step in boosting my career. I started to feel hopeful. But that afternoon, I got a notice. A high-rated show I had worked hard to get into was canceled. I called Kay, and from her hesitant words, I knew it was Julian's doing. I was upset for a long time and called Julian for the first time. It rang for a while before he answered. I could hear report presentations in the background. He coughed once, and the room went silent. "Something wrong?" I said cautiously, "Can you get that role back for me?" He said indifferently, "There were too many intimate scenes, it's not for you." I argued, "But the script is great, and the director has made hits before." Anything else?" "Anything else?" He added casually, "The lead actor is handsome, right? The one you used to rave about in high school." "Ah, true." The lead actor was nearly 20 years older than me, a star I was obsessed with back then. Julian had been so jealous, constantly hovering around me. He held such a grudge. I forced a smile. "So what do I do with my empty schedule?" "It's on me. I pay you enough every month, don't I?" With time on my hands, I joined a top-tier variety show. It was a top-tier production with A-list celebrities. Normally, I wouldn't have been at that level. But with Julian backing the company, the director treated me like a VIP. Filming took a long time, and wrapped up at the end of the year. The day before New Year's Eve, Julian took me to a party. Most of the attendees were famous socialites and playboys. I sat with some influencers, drinking to keep the mood up. One of them joked, "Julian, you finally brought a girl." My heart skipped a beat. It sounded like he hadn't had anyone else around him before. The guy sighed, "Since Victoria left, you've been a monk. I was worried about you." Someone shoved him, "Watch your mouth. Victoria just moved abroad, she's not dead. Besides, Elara is sitting right here, why bring up Victoria?" "Oh, my bad, I'll drink 3 glasses as a penalty." The room erupted in laughter. I laughed along with them. Then I poured myself 3 glasses of hard liquor and smiled. "Liam, I'll drink those for you." Julian grabbed my wrist. "Are you crazy?" I pouted, "I'm drinking for Liam, what's it to you?" He frowned, but I finished the last glass before he could say more. Liam laughed. "Julian, Elara has spirit, I like her." Spirit, more like acting the part of a graceful partner. The liquor hit me hard, and I couldn't stop the tears. Worried about my makeup, I made an excuse to go to the restroom. Before I returned, I heard my name. "Julian, do your parents know you're keeping a little star? We can play around, but your family is strict." Julian said dismissively, "I'll toss her when I'm bored." Julian controlled the family business, so he had a lot of power. But he was filial and usually didn't go against his parents. Then get bored soon. Victoria might come back any time. If she sees a woman by your side, she'll be heartbroken. "Heartbroken for what?" Julian said. "I'm just keeping a kitten." The hallway lights flickered, and the wall felt cold against my back. I waited for them to change the subject before walking back in. After the party, my father called. I was dizzy and slurring my words. He noticed immediately. "Elara, are you sick?" "No, just had a few drinks," I said. There was a long silence before his voice became heavy. "Elara, listen to me, get out of that industry. It's too messy. I found a few jobs, I can save up about 10,000 a year." I scuffed the snow on the sidewalk, listening. The good jobs, he meant, were probably washing dishes or cleaning floors at night. No one wants those jobs, so they pay well and don't take too long. In my second year of college, we went bankrupt. He's been doing that kind of work to put me through school. We can take it slow. In a few decades, we'll pay it all off. Decades? Did he want to ruin his old hands, washing dishes for decades? I sighed. "Dad, I don't want to live that hard anymore." He choked up. I let out a faint sigh. The variety show aired during the holiday season. The team was professional, and the script they gave me worked perfectly. The show was a hit, and I finally got some real attention. I checked social media to see the top trending topic: Elara and Harrison, the ice and fire couple. What? Harrison was a top-tier idol, with tens of millions of fans. The show's shippers were going crazy over just a few seconds of us in the same frame. Kay beamed at me. "Sweetie, you're finally making it big." Scripts started flying in. Kay picked a supporting female lead in a web novel adaptation. The male lead was Harrison, and filming would start right after the holidays. Julian didn't stop me this time. His mind wasn't on me lately. The last time I saw him was New Year's Eve. He had lunch with his family and spent the rest of the time with me. At night, huge fireworks filled the sky outside the window. He held me quietly and kissed me deeply as the fireworks peaked. That night was wild. I passed out before he was even finished. When I woke up in the middle of the night, his side of the bed was empty. I found him by the window, on the phone. "Which airport is she landing at?" The room was so quiet, I could hear Liam on the other end. "Didn't Victoria tell you? Hurry up, her flight was delayed, you can still make it." "Okay, I'm on my way." I crept back to the room. When Julian came back in, I pretended to be sound asleep. He took his keys and left without a backward glance. But I didn't sleep another wink. The show filming went smoothly, and I gained some small fame. Seeing Harrison again made me a bit shy, since I had ridden on his popularity. But he was very open about it, pouring me a drink with a smile. "Looking forward to working with you." I smiled and toasted with him. Filming this show would take 6 months. I worked hard when I had scenes and studied the script when I didn't. I asked Kay to book as many endorsements as possible. During breaks, I'd rush to shoot commercials. Harrison would occasionally shoot magazine covers with me as a couple. He was easy to get along with, as warm and humble as he appeared. His acting was excellent, usually getting everything in one take. He had already accepted our shipped couple status and would initiate small interactions or ambiguous gestures. The production team caught it all on camera to use as promotional material. I asked him why he did it. Harrison patted my head. I think we just click. Fame is easy, but a real friend is hard to find. I looked up into his beautiful, clear eyes, but they were so deep they made me uneasy. Could there really be someone like that in this industry? I didn't believe it. My scenes weren't many, so I finished early. During the last fight scene, the safety cable malfunctioned. I fell from about 10 feet up with no protection. If Harrison hadn't rushed over to break my fall, I would have broken my leg for sure. Even so, I had a minor fracture and needed a week of observation in the hospital. While lying in bed, I thought of Julian. For some reason, I called him. He answered quickly this time. Something wrong. I used my most pitiful voice. I'm hurt, Julian, it hurts. Before he could say anything, I heard a gentle female voice. Julian, who is it? The call was disconnected instantly. I laughed at myself. Elara, you chose the wrong time to act spoiled. You just ruined someone's moment. Then came a notification of a transfer. Julian had sent me $300,000. Huh? My sadness turned to joy in an instant. I clicked to accept the payment. Thinking back with a critical eye, I had actually hesitated for a second before clicking. What was I thinking in that second? Was I wondering if he'd worry more and comfort me if I didn't take the money? So dramatic. On the second day of my hospital stay, Liam visited. He hesitated before saying, "Find a chance to get out." I smiled half-heartedly. Is that Julian talking? Liam waved it off. I like your personality, so I'm trying to help you. You're not in the same league as Victoria. You can't win. For example, look up Victoria's name online. I opened a search engine. A photo of a sophisticated, mature woman appeared. Victoria, a renowned entrepreneur with billions in assets and multiple companies. Her bio didn't list whose daughter or sister she was, meaning her success was self-made. It was impressive. However, according to her age, she was 17 years older than Julian. Liam said, Julian's family went through a crisis. When he was at his lowest, Victoria helped him under immense pressure. We all saw it. They went through fire together. That kind of bond is rare. I scoffed. People like them still talk about real bonds. When Julian's family business recovered, they were supposed to marry. But Victoria got sick. She moved abroad quietly for treatment so as not to burden him. How noble, how deep. Now that she's back, she's probably cured and ready to marry him. Liam sighed. You're smart, you know what I mean. I know, of course I know. I'm not that smart, but I know when to stop. Besides, I never expected it to last. I laughed. I'm waiting for him to dump me so I can get a nice breakup fee. Liam frowned. Haven't you taken enough? I said, either make me a top star or pay off my family's $100 million debt. Do you know any other big players who can do that? Introduce me. He stared at me. Do you really not have a shred of feelings for Julian? With the atmosphere like this, it would be rude to hesitate. I said firmly, not a shred. Liam laughed and whispered, Are you giving up now? I didn't understand. He turned his hand over, showing his phone screen. It showed Julian on an active call. Damn it. So sneaky. By industry standards, what I said was fine. This kind of relationship is just beauty for resources, mutual benefit. Feelings are just a hassle no one wants. But Julian was different. I remembered a time he came home drunk and collapsed at the door. I felt bad and tried to help him up. He grabbed my hand tightly, as if he were afraid I'd run away. He said hoarsely, Elara, you have no heart. I was choked up for a moment. Guilty, of course. My father owed the Julian family a lot. His late-life misery was partly their doing. But what did I owe Julian? How could I pay it back? Could I ever? I ruined 15 years of childhood friendship with a stack of cash. How many 15-year periods in a life are that valuable and pure? The moment he looked up at me from the mud, I knew I could never pay him back in this lifetime. I called Julian several times. On the 11th try, he finally answered. His voice was cold. "Get lost." I said pitifully, "You don't want me anymore. I don't keep ungrateful wolves." He hung up. A few minutes later, a termination letter arrived from the company. I was filled with sorrow. I was a stray child again. Kay was also let go. Probably because of me, I felt terrible. She was optimistic, though, peeling a banana for me with a smile. "Sweetie, from now on, I'm your only manager. You have to take care of me." I thought, without Julian, we'd be lucky if we weren't starving. Harrison was also in the hospital, in the room next to mine. I had given him a minor concussion when I fell on him. Hospital life was boring. Kay couldn't sit still and dragged us into a game of cards. Harrison looked so upright, but he was incredibly cunning at cards. He won every single round. The snacks Kay and I had saved were all gone in half a day. Kay was furious, blaming me for being a useless teammate. Sigh, my card skills are just that bad. Harrison's company was willing to take me in, thanks to him, of course. In the second half of the year, I was busy filming, mostly supporting roles to hone my skills. During the summer, my show with Harrison was about to air. The company planned to build hype. What's better for hype than a romance between the leads? Harrison and I went out on a private date, making sure paparazzi caught us. Matching outfits, holding hands, feeding each other cotton candy at the amusement park. On the Ferris wheel, the sunset glow filled the sky. I pressed my face against the glass, looking at the view. Harrison watched me for a long time. He said, "Don't move." I stayed still. He stared at my profile and said softly, "So similar." With the romance hype, the show exploded. I became a top star overnight. Fans were going crazy in my comments, saying, "If you guys don't get married, we won't be happy." Married? I raised an eyebrow. Knowing how profit-driven this industry is, they might even arrange a fake marriage. As if on cue, the next day I saw the news of Julian's engagement. I saw the video of his proposal to Victoria. A field of red roses, hundreds of drones in the sky forming the words, "Marry me." He took out a ring and knelt on one eye. Netizens were amazed. It's like a romance novel come to life. Victoria, in a long dress, looked elegant and touched, covering her mouth with tears in her eyes. See, the leads of a novel overcome all obstacles to live happily ever after. It's always moving. My finger accidentally slipped, and the video stopped right before Julian said, "Marry me." I struggled for a long time, but didn't click play again. Did it hurt? Of course it did. When we were just kids, Julian asked, "Elara, you have such a temper, how can I ever marry you?" I didn't quite know what marry meant then, so I thought about it while biting my finger. There have to be lots and lots of roses on the ground and planes in the sky. Then I'll think about it. Julian's young face was dead serious. "Okay, I got it." "Son of a..." He asked me, then turned around and married someone else. Victoria's ring was a custom-made luxury brand that I endorsed. Julian specifically asked the brand for me to attend their engagement party. His words were, "I hope Ms. Elara can witness the happy moment of me and my fiancé in person." I did as he wished. While I was getting ready backstage, he walked right in. Luckily, I had a private dressing room with no one else around. But I was still startled. These days, a man and a woman alone together would always start rumors. I pretended not to see him and tried to walk past him. Julian scoffed, pinned my shoulder against the wall. His eyes were dark as he ambiguously touched my lips, rubbing them hard. I bit his finger hard. He laughed shortly, his eyes terrifyingly dark. "Learn to bite? Who taught you?" "Oh," Julian said slowly, "the boyfriend." "Elara, do I need to teach you how to be someone's mistress again?" I was shaking with rage. "We're over, stop being ridiculous." "Over?" He repeated quietly. "Elara, I'll tell you what over means. When your father is dead, when you're out of the industry, when you and your father are kneeling in front of me with nowhere to go, that's over." My teeth were chattering. I raised my hand to slap him. He caught my wrists and pulled me into his arms. Do you think you were able to film and get endorsements just by yourself? I didn't explicitly blackball you, so you thought you could make it on your own. I gritted my teeth, telling myself not to show weakness. Then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Is this Arthur's family? There's been a gas leak at the restaurant where he works. You'd better get to the hospital now. I went cold and said frantically, I'm coming, please, you have to save him. I hung up and heard Julian's cold voice, You're not going. I ignored him and turned to leave. He pulled me back. I stumbled and fell to my knees. Let me see my father, I beg you. You want me to kneel? I'm kneeling. His brow twitched and he took a small step back. What will you give in exchange? What in exchange? I clutched my dress, anything you want. Julian looked down at me. What if I want your father's life? My voice was raspy, almost screaming. Julian, my father didn't let your father go to prison back then. He showed mercy. Can't you show mercy now? So what if he didn't go to prison? He died miserably a few years later. Wasn't that your father's doing? He was pressing me. I couldn't take it anymore. It was a dead end. My eyes were red, and I thought about just ending it right there. If he wouldn't let me live, I'd fight him. Then Harrison walked in. He ignored the tension and said, Mr. Julian, Victoria has been looking for you for a long time. Julian looked at him coldly and didn't say a word. Harrison walked over and gently touched my face, smiling. Your makeup is ruined. Julian couldn't take it. Don't touch her. Oh, Harrison smiled. Mr. Julian, I won't hide it. She's my girlfriend. We haven't gone public yet. He gently fixed my hair. We're getting married soon. Silence. Julian's hands tightened at his sides, his eyes turning red. Married. Harrison ignored him, patted my back, and whispered, Don't be afraid, I'll take you away now. He gave Julian one last look and carried me out. My father was in a hospital in our hometown, far away. Harrison booked the earliest flight, but it would still take until night. I couldn't wait. I was so anxious I almost fainted at the airport. Then Kay appeared like a savior. She called me, Go to the airport manager. There's a private jet on runway 163, fully fueled, with a top burns specialist on board. I followed her directions and found the jet. I was more shocked than happy. I didn't know you had this kind of pull. Kay's voice was heavy. Don't ask questions, just go to your father. 2 hours later, I was by his side. He had only minor burns, but his boss was in critical condition. I was relieved and paid for the best room for him. While we were eating, my father woke up. We both cried. When he calmed down, he saw Harrison and was startled. Are you Elara's boyfriend? I could only nod and smile shyly. My father's brow finally relaxed, and he said with relief, That's good. After he fell asleep, Harrison and I went back to the car. He joked, Does this count as meeting the parents? I glared at him, You're getting too into character. I'm not into character. He leaned in, staring at me seriously. I want to marry you. His gaze was so intense, yet so deep, like he was looking through me to somewhere else. I shook my head. I don't want to. Yes, you do. I frowned. Harrison had a look of triumph in his eyes. If you don't stay with me, you'll have to go back to Julian and be his caged bird. I didn't speak, my eyelashes trembling. If you leave him, you'll be blackballed again. Who will pay your debts? He turned my face to look at him. You know what I'm saying. Elara, marry me. You don't need a dowry. I'll give you $100 million as a wedding gift. I said, Where would you get that much money? Don't worry about that, just say yes or no. I bit my lip, my nails digging into my palms. All of them, him, Julian, Liam, were too smart. I had planned to leave the industry, after paying the debts, and take my father abroad. To live a quiet life far from all this. I could study more, find a job, maybe meet a man I actually liked. But now, could I even leave? Fine. My father recovered, and I brought him back to my city. He didn't know about the $100 million gift, but he was happy with his son-in-law. Harrison and I picked a date and got married, announcing it right as the show's finale aired. Weibo crashed. Even Kay was stunned and took days to recover. On the night of the announcement, I got a dozen calls from different numbers. I didn't want to answer, but I had to. Come see me. Julian's background was noisy. He was probably at a bar. I refused immediately. His voice was unreadable. Elara, come see me. Just one more time. Suddenly, a brilliant light rose outside the window. I stared at it for a long time. Do you know the Yanshikudama? It's the world's largest firework. On my 16th birthday, Julian asked what I wanted, and I said the most beautiful fireworks in the world. He secretly took his grandfather's prized firework and set it off. Before lighting it, he called me, go to the window. I saw the light filling the sky, making night as bright as day. In the silence after the boom, his voice reached me. Elara, happy birthday. Julian's grandfather almost broke his legs for that. Not because of the cost, but because it was dangerous. My father took me to apologize. The old man wasn't angry. He smiled at me. Julian only listens to Elara. I lowered my head, blushing. He gave me a beautiful jade bracelet. My father tried to refuse, but the old man said, it's for my granddaughter-in-law, you can't stop me. Everyone laughed. We were a perfect match. Back then, everyone thought we'd end up together. But life is unpredictable. The next morning, Julian blocked my door. He dragged me inside and pinned me against the door. He looked like he hadn't slept all night, smelling of alcohol, his brow furrowed. He pinched my chin, his eyes dark, marrying him. I struggled, let me go. He pinned my hands behind my back and kissed me fiercely. I was forced to look up, unable to stop him no matter how much I bit him. I said coldly, what I do is none of your business. You're getting married too, aren't you? What we do. His eyes were dark, you and who? Before I could say anything, he threw me onto the bed. He was really drunk. I bit his shoulder as hard as I could until I tasted blood. He groaned and stopped, and I took the chance to escape. Aren't you afraid I'll ruin both of you? He could do it. To people like him, we were just pets. I sobbed, do you want to kill me? He froze, his eyes turning red. I looked back at him, tears falling. After a long silence, he said quietly, okay. What do you mean? I can stand you marrying Harrison, but Elara, we can't end. I was stunned. He looked so humble in that moment, as if all his previous posturing was just a facade. You can have anyone else, but you can't forget me. He tried to grab me, and I slapped him hard, shaking with rage. You're crazy. Only a drunk could say something like that. I laughed, Julian, I bet when you're sober, you'll want to kill yourself for saying this. He closed his eyes, looking exhausted. I called Liam to come and get him. The wedding with Harrison was grand. My father cried in the audience. As the guests were leaving, I was in the dressing room removing my makeup. Harrison was waiting outside. Before I opened the door, I heard Julian's voice. Your father doesn't know you used company funds, does he? Harrison said flatly, none of your business. I'll take responsibility. I went cold. Silence for a while. Julian's voice was raspy. She likes mangoes. What? She's afraid of bugs, likes cold baths and bruises easily. He was mumbling to himself. Behind the door, I tried to hold it in, but I still cried. A few days later, Liam called. Let's talk. I said, nothing to talk about. He said, then come to 31 Zion Glen Road. I have something to show you about Julian. He sounded urgent. I hesitated but went. Son of a... I was knocked unconscious as soon as I arrived. When I woke up, I saw Harrison's worried face. You were almost sold to human traffickers. What? He scoffed, Victoria has a dark heart. I didn't understand, why me? Harrison said, probably because of Julian. I was silent. After a while I asked, who saved me? The police, of course. Really? I lowered my eyes. In my memory, Julian's worried face was so clear. The hospital window was open, and a fine rain was drifting in. I realized it was the misty rain Julian used to love so much. Harrison and I were the model couple for 3 years. He was respectful and never overstepped without my consent. I wasn't blackballed, instead my career flourished. As if I had some secret help. In 3 years, I earned $100 million. I even won a major international award for a lead role. Awards in this industry are often about capital gains. Harrison had told me it would likely go to another actress. So when I heard my name, my shock was real. As I walked up to accept the award, I was nervous. I didn't notice Julian sitting in a corner, out of camera range, looking indifferent. As I spoke, I caught his eye and froze. In that moment, everything clicked: why I was here, why I won. He looked up at me with a rare smile. From far away, he mouthed, "Great job." Just like when I was a nervous student running for class president, he had mouthed the same thing from the back row. But so what? I looked away. Harrison joined me on stage and gave me a deep hug for the cameras. I kept my eyes down. After years in this industry, I knew everyone in the audience was wearing a fake smile. Except him. When we went off stage, I looked back. The corner was empty. I transferred the money to Harrison and finally asked for a divorce. Outside the Civil Affairs Bureau, Harrison smiled bitterly. 3 years couldn't keep you. I tilted my head. You couldn't keep her either, could you? So you knew. He looked conflicted. I smiled and said nothing. The news of my divorce and retirement spread quickly. I declined all interviews and flew to a small coastal town called Fero with my father. I had scouted it long ago. It was quiet and perfect for him. After settling in, I called Kay. She said Julian was going crazy looking for me. Do you really not want to start over with him? The evening breeze was nice. I looked at the sea and didn't speak. Kay sighed. The helicopter you took back then, he sent it. And when you were kidnapped, he was the one who chased them for a day and night to save you. Just think about it. She added, besides, he and Victoria never married. I heard she's in a bad way now. How? I remembered Victoria as a powerful woman. Kay scoffed. Karma. That woman was known for being ruthless. Oh. But it has nothing to do with me anymore. I borrowed books from the old library and walked around the school I was going to attend. The ginkgo leaves were golden and falling. The sun was warm as I walked alone in this town where no one knew me. 2 weeks later, it started raining as I was returning books. As I stood at the library door, someone silently came over with an umbrella. He looked at me with deep exhaustion in his eyes. I said naturally, "You're here. Want me to show you around?" Julian and I hung out for a long time. We went sailing, visited secluded islands, kissed and embraced in the sun. Julian never let go of my hand. He asked me several times, "Elara, just stay with me like this, okay?" There was a hint of desperation in his eyes. I kissed him but didn't answer. The dream ended with a gunshot. Julian had made many enemies on his way up. He usually had protection, but this time he was alone. And then it happened. He immediately pushed me down when the shot rang out. I was dazed and saw a gun pointed at his back. Blocking that shot was a split-second decision. He held me, his eyes red. "Elara, what are you doing? Do you want me to die?" I couldn't even open my eyes, but I still tried to wipe his tears. "I didn't want you to die. I wanted you to live a long, happy life." But I couldn't say it. I had a long dream. I saw my father's stern face. He put a stack of money on the table and said, "Break up with him, and I'll spare his father." I cried my eyes out but took the money and walked out into the rain. I drifted in and out of consciousness. I saw Julian kneeling, and I saw myself being bullied at work after the bankruptcy. I thought my life wasn't supposed to be like this. Who's to blame? My father. I later learned he wanted to merge with Julian's family business because I had bad grades and he wanted to get me into a better university abroad. He didn't know it would almost ruin my life. But no one is a god, no one can see the future. It was just my fate. When I woke up, Julian was both laughing and crying. He looked so haggard, nothing like the high and mighty CEO he was. He held my hand and whispered, "Elara, let's get married. I'll take care of you for the rest of my life." I smiled, my eyes wet. My voice was raspy. "Julian, I've died for you once now." He was stunned. I said softly, "Let's end it here. I don't owe you anything anymore." Finally, I could say that with a clear conscience. Julian closed his eyes in pain, and when he opened them, they were bloodshot. He smiled bitterly. Is it only about owing or not owing? All these years. I interrupted. All these years, if we were meant to be together, we would have been. Did we not try? Of course we did, but our efforts were too small compared to reality. Endless years of struggling only left us with heartbreaks. Julian said, I can accept your father. If you come back, I'll rebuild your family business. He begged, Elara, just ask for anything, I'll do it. I touched his face and said nothing. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't moved, but my heart was already exhausted. The rainy season in Fero arrived early. And so did Julian's mother. The rich mother-in-law versus poor girl,